This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
We begin the current Daf Masechtes Shabbos Daf Gimel. We begin on the bottom of Daf Beis and Beis, 3 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, where our shiur is co-sponsored by Kahal Zech and Yecheskel, Daf HaChaim, and Torah Anytime. Some ideas we're going to speak about in today's Daf is we're going to continue the discussion of Haitzah, specifically that, as we discussed at the end of the previous Daf, that the Mishnah counts only 8 cases. There was the Shnaim Shehin Arba Bifnim and Shnaim Shehin Arba B'chutz. We talked about the Ani on the outside, talked about the Baal Bayis on the inside. We spoke about 8 cases, 2 that's 4 is really 4, it means another 2, and then 2 plus 2 for the one on the outside, that's a total of 8. The Gemara is going to ask, seemingly, that there's actually should be 12 or 16 cases, not just 8 as we say it in the Mishnah. Additionally, we're going to discuss why is this halacha of our Mishnah that we said if one does the akira, one does the hanacha, that they're going to be pater, that we said we're adding on another 2 that are paturi. We said the Mishnah Shavuos talks about only chiyuvi, amrishtuk, chiyuvi, and paturi. Why, if 2 people do malacha, are they pater? Aren't they both in kahut? Aren't they both doing the prohibited malacha? Additionally, we're going to speak about different types of akira. As we mentioned, to be chayiv on the malacha of haitzah, one has to do with the akira and the hanacha. He has to pick it up and put it down. What happens if, let's say, you do different types of akira, let's say you don't put it down, let's say you just have your hand stretched out, or let's say your hand is stretched out and you pull it back in. What happens if, let's say, it was on your body and you just move your body? Is that considered an akira? Something's in your pocket and you're just moving. Is that an akira? You're not lifting it up from the ground, but you're lifting up your body. Let's say someone puts stuff on your shoulder and you're moving, or let's say before Shabbos and you move. That's going to be. We're going to discuss different types of akira. Okay, so let's begin the current daf. Amalei Rav Masna Labaya. Again, we begin on the bottom of the Daf Beis Beis, 2 lines up at the bottom of the Amud, where the Gemara is continuing from the previous Gemara's discussion. That Ha Tamni Havyan, is that really so that there's 8 cases that we're discussing in the Mishnah? Shnaim Shenarba, again, 2 plus 2 for the one on the inside, 2 plus 2 for the one on the outside, which is a total of 8. But Tarti Srei Havyan, it actually should be a total of 12, meaning 4 of liability, which is 2 for the Ani and 2 for the Balabais, which again, each one has a Tzanach Nasa, and 8 cases of Peturi. What's the 8 cases? So you have the 2 Akiras of the Ani without Hanacha, you have 2 Hanachas for him without the Akira, and same thing for the Balabais. For example, let's pick the case of when the Ani stretches out his hand full of stuff to the inside of the house. The Balabais takes it from him. There's 2 people over here. There's the Ani and the Balabais. The Ani did the Akira, the Balabais did the Hanacha. Or let's say the Ani stretched his hand inside, and the Balabais put something inside, and now he takes it outside. The Balabais did the Akira, and the Ani did the Hanacha. And so too in all these cases, therefore, as you see in this slide, that why are you counting only 8, which is only the one who did the Akira? We're explaining what the Gemara is not saying explicitly, because that's going to actually be in the Gemara's answer. But in actuality, there's another 4 people that you're not mentioning. In the others, the flip side of the case, there should really be 12 cases by the Haitzah. Because instead of you mentioning, when you're talking about the case of the Balabais being Aser, where you're saying his Shehin Arba, and by the case of the Ani being Aser, why are you only mentioning the fact of here, the Balabayas? When we spoke about the case of the Balabayas, we added on another 2 cases for him when he's only doing half. He's only doing the Akira. So why didn't you mention the Ani, that he's also extra cases of Peturi? He's also doing an Issur D'Rabbanan of Hanacha, and he's not being Chayv because he didn't do the whole thing. Why are you not mentioning those cases? How come you're not mentioning here too? There's 2 types, like we said, Rashi, there's 2 types of Akiras for the Balabais. Either when he picks it up inside his Rishos or when he takes it outside. We spoke about that on Daf Beis. But either way, you're saying these cases, those are Shehin Arba. Those are his 2 rabbinically prohibited cases. And what about him? What about the Ani? Isn't he also doing a half of a malacha, of hanacha? Like in this case, the Ani. We said Ani, when he does the Akira, those are Shehin Arba. We're adding on 2 more cases. Because he's doing a rabbinically prohibited thing of Akira. He's doing half the thing. Where again, it's either when he's stretching his hand out or he's doing the Akira inside. But what about him? What about what about the Balabayas? Isn't he also doing half of a malacha? Shouldn't those also be peturi? So why are you saying that there's only 8 cases in the Mishnah? There should be 12. What about these? That should be a total of 8 isuri d'Rabbanan. Yeah, each one has their 2 chiyuv d'Oraisa when they're doing both like here in Anacha, it's either Hatzah and Nachnasa. But then, why you mention only another 4 of rabbinic? There should be another 8 of rabbinic. Regarding the Gemara's question, why are you counting only half of that equation? Aren't they both doing half of a biblical violation, which is the rabbinic prohibition, which we consider your putter from a chiv chatzik, you didn't do biblical case? Why are you saying only 8? There should be 12. We should add on another 2 for each one of them when they do the hanachas of the other half. So that says the Gemara, wait a second, they weren't asked on the Gemara's question. Well, Taimech, according to your reasoning, actually shitzri havyin, then don't ask there should be 12. There should be 16 that you should have counted. Because there are also those, when we spoke about the case, when the person is chayav achatas. For example, when the ani did the akira and the hanacha. So in those cases, you have let's say the case of the balabayas, where he's doing both the akira and the hanacha. We said that's his time that he's chayav deraisa. He's doing akira, he's picking it up from his hand and putting it into rishus hayachid. And here too, where this case, where he's doing. Which case is that? This case, where he's doing haitzah. Here he's doing hachnasa, here he's doing haitzah. Those are his 2 biblically. Those are the shtayim, 2 biblically. Now, how come you don't mention him? What's in those cases? Here, let's say the ani 2, where he's doing the akira and the anacha. He's taking it out of his hand, putting it here, or he's doing haitzah, he's doing hachnasa, he's bringing it in. Why didn't you mention the other people here too?
Because they're not doing it.
Oh, Anamoira Bista. Those are the Gemara's teretz. But that's the Gemara's question. Why did you mention he's also potter? He's also potter. So that's what the Gemara goes and says, Amalei says, no, Holei Kasha, don't make my question more than it is. Bishleim, as we continue top of Gimel Manav, Bava de Reisha, the first part, meaning, when you're in the rabbinically cases of when the ani is going to be chayav and the balabais is potter, or the balabais chayav and the ani is potter, where that's the potter, he's potter from achatas umutter. He's like a tchila allowed to do what he's doing. He didn't do anything like we just heard. He did an akira, he didn't do an anacha, someone else put in his hand. Like Katani, those cases were not mentioning regarding your potter. As garnish ketun. Now, Taisus points out a very interesting thing, which halach lamaisa. What do you mean he didn't do anything? He did lifnei iver. You assisted someone in violence. You didn't do anything, but you let him do it. And even if he could have done it without you, which then you're not over lifnei iver, you still consider what's called mesayeya. You still helped someone do it. You didn't get in his way, which is rabbinically prohibited.
And he's dumped it in his arms. That's
no. You're holding something, and he takes out of your hand. He does like here in Anacha. You're helping him. Don't let him take from your hand. Don't let him take. Get in his way. So Taisa says in the case has to be talking about, which is interesting. It has to be talking about a non-Jew, and it's actually the object of a non-Jew. Because the yid taka, you wouldn't say potter or mutter, because the taka would be at least a rabbinic prohibition of misayeya. But one thing is, what? But one thing is that we're not going to mention. Above the seifa, but our question is, like we're talking about here, the last cases, meaning there's the first cases, the way our Mishnah is constructed, our Mishnah was first describing each one's shtayim, their biblical cases, the ani and the usher. Then it spoke about where they're pater aval usher, when it spoke about the cases when you're doing half of it. So in the Reisha, where the other guy didn't do anything, so we're not going to mention him at all as him being exempt. He didn't do anything. Elababa the Sefer, the last case, the pater, were there when he's pater from achatas because he didn't do the biblical violation. Aval asa, but rabbinically it's problematic, like a tchila, because he's doing the hanacha. So kasha, that's a difficulty. Why don't you mention those people? Why are you only mentioning the guy who did the first half? Why don't you mention the second half too? He's also pater, but he did a rabbinic violation about doing the hanacha. Says the Gemara, wait a second. Now the Gemara asks on the Gemara's question again. Mika b'kuli Shabbos, is it possible that in the whole Masechta Shabbos, pater umuter, that you're telling me that the guy that you didn't mention from the Reisha is because when it says he's pater, it's potter, and he's even permitted to. So you tell me, why did we only ask 12 and not 16? Because those 4, like we heard before, someone said they didn't do anything. When this is potter, it's not just that you're exempt, but it is problematic. It's actually permitted him to do. Says the Gemara, on that part that you're telling me, is that really so? In Masechta Shabbos, when you say something potter, it could even mean mutter? But Shmuel says, and this is actually the halacha l'maisa, kol patur de Shabbos. Whenever it says in the Masechta Shabbos, the halachas of Shabbos that you're exempt, it's potter aval aser. You're exempt from the liability, not chayiv chatas, not chayiv kares, but it's prohibited. There's 3 exceptions. The potter umutter, where then it's going to be exempt, and it's actually going to even be permitted. And all these 3 halachas are learned out in Perek Belazar, where the Gemara there talks about and explains why these 3. Where do they know that it's not only potter, but it's even going to be mutter? What are these 3? Tzeidas tzvi, if you capture a deer. Tzeidas nachash, you capture a snake. Umapis mursa, and you pop a pimple, you lance a boil, which you're opening up just to let out the mucus. But one thing is, how can you tell me that you don't say those other 4 for the 16? Because they're mutter even. We're not mentioning those, only mentioning potter avalasa, but we don't find in Masechta Shabbos a potter means mutter. How can you say that those 4 that didn't do anything, they're even mutter? Says the Gemara, no. When did Shmuel have to tell us that those 3 exceptions, that it's not only potter, it's not only exempt, but it's even mutter? It's only paturi de ka'avad maisa. It's something that you're exempt, but you did something. Like these 3 cases, you did an action. It was an active thing, capturing a deer, capturing a snake, popping a pimple. But peturi de loikav and maisa, but an exemption that you didn't do anything, was totally passive. Ikatuva, of course, in many cases, like those, like the cases of our ratio where that other person didn't do anything. So then we don't have to tell you that it's going to be not only potter, but even mutter. As Tais actually points out, we find other times in Shas, like by someone putting out a candle, where the Gemara, it says over there that he's exempt. And the Gemara explains it's talking about a chaylish shesh by sakana. Obviously, it's even mutter, because sakanas nafash shall do anything. Tais explains the same thing is over there, because there's a milsa de pshita. Of course, we don't have to tell you that it's going to be mutter. And the cases over here by capturing a snake are talking about that it's not a danger to a person's life. And you could save the person another way. It's just because of tsar, like popping the pimple. That's where we have to tell you that it's going to be potter and even going to be mutter. And the same thing is another Gemara elsewhere where it says a woman is exempt for going out with a brooch. It's the same thing, because another reason, Shmuel only mentioned those things that are mentioned in Mishnayos. But there are going to be other cases in Masechta Shabbos that says potter and it's going to be mutter. It's only those which are mentioned in Mishnayos. And you're doing an action, Shmuel had to tell you that it's going to be even mutter. But yes, the first 4 people in our Mishnah that we say they're mutter, they're potter, obviously means even mutter. You didn't do anything. You didn't do an akira or hanach. So the Gemara says, okay, now we know why we didn't ask 16. But Mekamakam went back to the original question. Tartis rehabyan. So why are you saying only 8? It should be 12. Says the Gemara, as we've been saying all along, exemptions that could come to a liability of a carbon chatas, where whenever you talk about chayav and pater Masechta Shabbos, the important concept we mentioned before, is regarding if you did it by mistake, that you can be chayav a carbon chatas. So if it could come to a liability of a carbon chatas, meaning, and we explained this is a very important, famous machlekes Rashi and the Riva. We mentioned this in the Daf Beis. Rashi understands what are we talking about in the Mishnah of the Shehin Arba, the rabbinic problematic is if you did the akira, you started off the malacha where then you could be concerned that maybe you're going to finish it off. You could come to chiv chatas when you did this isid rabban of doing the akira, because you could do the hanacha then. That's kachashav. That's what the Mishnah is counting about. That the rabbanon also added on to the original 2 chiv deraisa another 2 rabbanot. Now, however, regarding hanachas, the loyasa b'del chiv chatas, you cannot come to chiv chatas because you didn't do that kira. When you're placing it down, you did half the malacha, you didn't do the beginning part. So you're obviously not going to come to chiv chatas by the isad rabbanon, loy kachashav, that the Mishnah didn't count. So the 4 that we counted with each one, the ani and the balabayis, was the 2 of chiv, that you chayav chatas, if you did the hitzah and the achnasa. And then we counted 2 more of akiris of patur. When you picked it up in your domain, and he stretched his hand out to you, or you picked up and you put it into the other one's domain, those are 2 that we added on. But the other cases of the hanacha, that we didn't count. So when, let's say, the ani stretches out his hand that with objects into the rishus hayachid, so that's 1 for the ani. Or if, let's say, the balabais put something in his hand and the ani's hand was empty, so that's going to be another case of the balabais where each one did the hanacha. So that's going to be also the last case is also, again, according to Rashi, that learns out they're not exactly synchronized, that then when you did the akira, that's the case that we're adding on in the rabbinic problem. Now, Rashi brings from his teachers, and that's very similar to what the Riva says, that no, it's not the who did the akira, but who stretched his hand out, whether full or empty, whoever did the actual ikr malacha of haitzah, that's the one that we're counting is the extra 2. As we explained from the Rivah, they have many difficulties with Rashi's interpretation, where, as we mentioned, someone asked after the shiur that if one of the cases of Akira, according to Rashi, is you picked up your hand, and then the person from the other domain stretches out his hand and takes it from you. So according to Rashi, that's one of the cases of your Akira. Bala Bayis in his house, if he picks up his object and he's holding it, what he did an Akira? He did a beginning of a malacha by tzah. He's moving stuff around his house. When the other comes and takes it out from him, he did half the Isser? What did he do already? That's called an Akira? That's why they have difficulty with Rashi interpretation and a few other questions. And the Riva says, no. What does it mean, Asa Dechiv Chatas? The one who stretched out his hand. You did the malacha. You did the haitzah. Now, you might have missed the Akira. You might have missed the Anacha. That's the one that we're counting the Asa Dechiv Chatas. Not like Rashi, because you start off, you can finish it. Because you did the primary malacha. Agav, you need to have Akira and Anacha. So if you're missing one of those two, that's how the Riva learns is Asa Dechiv Chatas. Those are the ones we're adding on. Those are 2 cases of each one. Actually, that sounds more synchronous in the Mishnah. When we're saying Shehin Arba, we're describing for the Ani and for the Balabayas. Those cases, as we mentioned when we say in the Mishnah, those 2 cases when you're stretching out your hand, let's see if it's over here, that in those cases, when we speak about the, if you look at these cases that we're counting, we said that what are we counting are the ones that, according to Rashi, doing the Akira, which you see by number 3, where he's doing the Akira. So over here, he's doing the Akira. And here by number 4, he's also doing the Akira. According to Rashi, what's the idea? The idea is who's doing the Akira. So Rashi says 2 ways you can do the Akira, either in your own domain or into other person's domain. The one that puts it down, so him, we're not counting because according to Rashi, he's just doing the Hanacha. You can't come to Chiyav of Chatas. The Riva explains it differently. He says that no, which ones are we counting? We're talking about whoever had their hand stretched out. That's the one that we're mentioning. Now, you might have been missing Hanacha, you might have been missing Akira, but that's not, we don't care about that. We're caring who did the actual Maisa of Haitzah. That's the Shein Arba. I hope that's not confusing by mentioning it, but it's one of the classic and most important, and also according to the Riva, just you'll read the Mishnah again, you'll see how it's synchronized with the first half. That's one of the points that Taisa brings up, why they disagree with Rashi's interpretation. Now, the Gemara continues.
Every Akira stuff like that, it's Al Shem Sofer, no? So let's say there's no other person. There's an Akira in his house. He didn't do anything yet because he didn't walk out yet. So once he walks out and he puts it down on Zarabim, now the Akira becomes an Akira.
Right. So you're asking a question saying that what is Tais's problem with Rashi that's saying what you do when you picked it up in your house? Isn't that every Akira? Yeah, that might be part of the defense for Rashi. That it also depends why you're picking it up, as we'll see in the latest sugya. If you're picking it up to take it outside, so what's Tais's problem? Tiltal ba'alma. It's not, you're not stop moving it. Yeah, you're doing the Ma'aseh Akira. Why would that be a difficulty with Rashi's interpretation? Yeah, that's part of the discussion. Yeah. So the next piece of the Gemara, that the Gemara is asking a question, Taisys points out, it's not going on the halacha of the Mishnah, because the Gemara is about to ask right now, Shneim, if it's done through 2 people, P'turin, they're exempt, which you could think it's referring to the halacha of the Mishnah, which the Mishnah says that if they're each doing half, they're going to be patur. Taisys just very important, points out that the Gemara in the next daf start talking about the reish of the Mishnah. It can't be talking about the sefer. Rather, the Gemara's question right now is going on the inference of the Gemara we just said. The Gemara just said that what did we mention in the sefer? Pituri de asa de chiyuva, only exemptions that could come to liability that we mentioned. So that's what the Gemara's question is. Wait a second, it's only asa de chiyuva, but it's not actual chiyuva? Frek the Gemara, that's what the Gemara asked. Why not? But the malacha was done by the 2 of them. As Taisa points out, the Gemara's question is not that the first one should be chayiv. It's not logical that the first one should be chayiv because of what the second one did. But the second one who finished it off, now through 2 people doing it, why is he potter? Why shouldn't he be chayiv? Because a malacha was done through 2 people. So because more people were involved, you can be potter? That's the Gemara's question. The Gemara assumes if 2 people are doing it, so let them either both be liable or let the second one be liable. Says the Gemara, no, Tanya in the Brisa. Rabbi Ami says the pasuk in the Yikra that says regarding to the carbon chatas. It says in the pasuk of the Yikra, it says if a person is going to make a sin by mistake. So it says the mi'ama aretz, from one of the people of the land, ba'asaisa, when he does it. What does it mean ba'asaisa when he does it? It says it means ha'isa is kula. Only if you do the whole malacha, v'lo ha'isa is miktsas, and not if you do part of it. Like Taisa says, although the simple translation of the pasuk is going on the person, whoever does it, but the Gemara expounds it to say on the malacha. Ba'asaisa means ba'asais oisa. If you do it, If you do the whole thing, meaning Yachad va'asa isa chayiv, if you're an individual doing the whole malacha, then you're going to be chayiv. And this is a very important halacha in Hilchas Shabbos, Shnayim va'asu isa b'turin. Two people who do it, then you're actually going to be pater. And therefore, when two people do it, you're going to be pater. It manam so too. We learned there. This is nizukum and pi chabura. It was thrown out from the mouths of the chabura of the group. But they said this halacha when it says in the pasuk about say so, when he does it, it means yachad shasal chayv. When the individual does it, Shnayim shasu b'turin. When two people do it, they're going to be pater. Which interesting Taisus. He says, well, how you bring a raya from Amiram to a brisa? Don't we always say a brisa is more chashav? Why bring a raya from the nizukum and pi chabura to a brisa we just quoted? It was a brisa. So either he says because actually no, the Chabur was Tanoim, or he says that no, because this was it was a brisa that wasn't a certified brisa from the brisa of Rabbi and Rabbi Ishia. There were many Tanoim that weren't the authoritative ones. Therefore, we can actually bring raya from Amiram, like that brisa, which is the halacha that we see that when two people do a malach on Shabbos, they're actually going to be pater. Now we continue with the.
We don't do that then, no? Because like when you have a chayfa guma, a chayfa bo, and somebody falls, the person who did the last tefach,
Right, exactly. By other things, like we see by when you kill someone, when someone digs a pit, as the Gemara's question was, the second one, as Tosis explained, should be chayiv, but here we see by Melachas of Shabbos, that's Gzeis HaKasa, Ba'asaisa, is to say Ba'asais Aisa. Now the Gemara continues in an interesting discussion now. We spoke about that when you do the Malach B'Yitzah, you have to do the Akira, you have to pick it up, and you have to do the Hanach. So now the Gemara asks, what's considered an Akira? Ba'yimene Rav Mirebi. So what's the halach of, let's say, a person was standing his body in Rosh Hashanah, in a private house, Hitinu Chaver, and then his friend goes and loads him up. So the person himself never did Akira, he didn't pick up anything. But his friend puts, let's say, a loaf of bread, oichel nomashkin, food items or beverages, which Rashi just points out, that's just the normative way that's what people need on Shabbos. So he's, here, take some food, and he's putting it on his shoulder, or he puts it maybe in his pocket. And people normally involved with food items in Shabbos. So the guy puts it on the shoulder. Here, take a piece of kugel. He thinks he's staying over there by the Kiddush. And then he forgets he has it on his shoulder. And now he carries it outside. What's the halacha? What's the question? The Gemara explains. Do we say Akira's gufay when he picks up his body, meaning when he lifts up his feet from the house after he was loaded up? Is that Kakira's chayvetz mimkaimedami? Is that the same like picking up an object from its place? Which that's actually as the Rambam rules, as we rule. Umechayev and the going to be liable because he did an akira. You don't have to pick it up with your hands. You picked it up by moving your body. So it's lifting up the food item. Or maybe no. Amalei said, Chayev, he's going to be liable because it is considered like picking up the object. And you cannot compare it to the hand, meaning the Gemara is alluding to a question. One of the cases in the Mishnah was if the ani, the guy on the outside, Rosh Hashanah, stretches out his hand inside and his body is on the outside. So we said if the balabayas puts his hand, and this is the case that we're talking about. So you have the ani over here. The ani is stretching out his hand inside. The balabais is putting something inside. So the Mishnah said, he's going to be pater. Now, although when we say this case in the Mishnah, we're saying that the balabais is pater because he didn't do a hanacha in Rosh Hashanah, the ani did that. But inherent in that case too is you tell me that the ani is pater. The ani is pater. Why is he pater? Right over here, when he gets it in here, so he's moving it a hand, is akiras chayfetz mimkaimedami. Why is it different than over here? You told me when you put it on his shoulder. He never did akira, but when he picks up his body and he walks outside, you tell me he's doing akira. Now when he stops, it's hanacha. So why in this case of the Mishnah did you say they're both going to be pater? When he has it, forget about this guy, the balabais. He goes back doing his thing. The ani now, when he pulls his hand back out, isn't that an akira also? And now he puts it down. That's hanacha. He should be chayiv. He did akira and hanacha. Why is it different than his body? And that says the Gemara. No, it's not the same thing. Says the Gemara, my time. What's the reason? Kufa, his body is nayich, is at rest on the ground. You're stationary. On the ground with gravity. You're just static. So when you move your body, that's considered akira. Yadi, his hand, loy nayich. That's not at rest. You have to actively hold your hands up. When you move your hand, you never did an akira, and therefore that's not the way of Baitzah, because you have to do akira and hanacha, because your hand over here is not considered in stationary. Because it's a continuation of the original akira that the Balabais did, and therefore, yes, here he's going to be pater, but here he's going to be chayiv. Now there's another girsa that Tais is busy with, and Rashi brings it down, and he says no, because yodei basa gufa greira. The hand we don't view as its own thing; we view it as part of the body. So therefore, he never really did an akir from here. We view him as part of his body, which is over here, which Rashi says not to have the girsa because it's superfluous. Tais is busy with it, but either way it is that there's a difference between the yad and the guf. So by akiras gufa is kakiras cheves, you can be chayiv, but moving the hand is not considered an akira. Now we continue to have Beis. Parenthetically, the Gemara says, Amali Reb Chia l'Rav. Reb Chia said to Rav, who had asked this question to Rebbe, what's the halacha? Do we say akiras gufa is kakiras cheves or not? He said, wait, Bar Pachsi, son of nobility, son of great people, Lo yamin lach, didn't I tell you, Kikoi Rebbe b'ha-mesechta, when Rebbe's involved in one mesechta, Lo teshayli b'mesechta achriti. Don't ask him, and it's actually halacha l'maisa. Don't ask him a question in another mesechta. Dimalava daite. Maybe he's not going to be focusing on it. He's not in that mesechta right now. He's going to be embarrassed. Do you love the Rebbe Gavarabu? If not for Rebbe being such a great personage, Kesafti would have embarrassed him. You would ask him a question. The Mishani look shinu, you love shinu. He would answer a question. It's not really a good question. It's a good answer because he's not in the sugi right now. Now hashtami ashab Mishani look, but he gave you a good answer because the time like in the Brisa the way Rebbe answered. The Brisa says if he was loaded up, someone else if he loaded himself up, stuff, food and beverages on his shoulder from before Shabbos, which that's the same case that was asked of Rebbe essentially. When his friend loads him up on Shabbos, either case is talking about that he didn't do a prohibited akira on Shabbos, either because he loaded himself up from before Shabbos, or because his friends load him up. But either way, you didn't do a prohibited akira on Shabbos. What does the Brisa say? And once it becomes nighttime, he then goes out with it. Chayiv, he's chayiv because he did an akira's gufa. He picked up his body. And says the Brisa, because it's not the same as his hand, which is stretched out inside, and his body's on the outside. And his friend put something inside of it, although that guy didn't do the hanacha. But why didn't you say that this guy is moving his hand, and that's considered the akira? We say that's not considered as an akira because your hand is not considered at rest. Now, based on this discussion, the Gemara continues with another related halacha. So that's going to be, we're going to see in the later sugi, there are those who want to say that walking is also considered mahalach ka'im adami. Walking is like staying. But most opinions don't hold like that because you're in transition. But when your body's that's in stationary positioning, that would be considered like you're putting it down. And that would not be considered in transition. Now, Abai says the following halacha. He says, Pshitli, he says, it's obvious to me from the halacha of our Mishnah that we just described right now, that yodei shaladam, a person's hand that's stretched out into another domain, Eina is not considered as if it's connected to his body totally, to be like the domain that person's body is standing in. Like Rosh Hashanah, not like the Rosh Hashanah, but like Rosh Hashanah, and not Rosh Hashanah. In other words, wherever this person's body is, when his hand is stretched out into another domain, you don't consider the hand as if it's in the same domain as the person's body. Where do you see this? So the Gemara explains. I could prove to you it's not like if the person's in Rosh Hashanah, that his hand in another domain is like Rosh Hashanah, miyadi di ani. From the case of the hand of the poor person, one of the cases in the Mishnah we learned that when the balabayis, if the ani goes, it's not in this slide, but if the balabayis, if the ani sticks his hand into the Rosh Hashanah with food, and the balabayis takes it from his hand, we said that the balabayis is going to be pater because the ani did the akira, and the balabayis did just the hanacha. Wait a second. If the person's hand is considered like part of his body, which actually according to those gesois, like Taisa brought that it's talking about that your hand is like considered like connected to your body, therefore it's not considered at rest, then you're essentially taking from Rishus Harabim. When he stretches his hand in, if let's say this line, the top of my Gemara is the next domain. So when I stretch it out over here, and I'm the Ani, the Balabais takes this from me, if my hand is considered connected to my body, he's taking it from Rishus Harabim. Because although my hand is in Rosh Hashanah, but my hand is considered part of my body, and he's taken from Rosh Hashanah. Why are you saying that he's pater? Obviously, because we don't consider his hand as the Rosh Hashanah, because it's not Rosh Hashanah right now; it's in the Rosh Hashanah. So too says the Gemara, Rosh Hashanah. It's also that the person's hand is not going to be like the Rosh Hashanah. If let's say his hand is stretched out into the Rosh Hashanah, miyodi the balabais. In the case of the hand of the balabais. When we said, if let's say the balabais goes and stretch out his hand into Rishus Harabim, and the ani takes it from him, so he said both are pater, because each one's doing only half of the malacha. One's doing the ki, one's doing hanacha. But wait a second. If you say the hand is considered connected to the body, the ani is taking really from Rishus Hayachid. So he's doing an akira and hananacha, because he's taking from it. You see that? No, we don't consider that the hand is like the domain where the body's in, whether it be Rishus Hayachid or Rishus Harabim. But based on this, Abaya has the following question. The person's hand, now that we see that the hand is not considered as if it's in the same domain as the body, regarding the Chiyav D'Oraisa, regarding being liable for Haitzah, so obviously we see that it's considered almost like its own domain. So what's the halacha? Are we so stringent, rabbinically shatastic karmelis, that we should make the person's hand like its own rabbinic prohibited area, like a karmelis? So if, let's say, a person stretches out his hand full into another domain, which as we see in this slide, where maybe the halacha should be that he's not allowed to go ahead and take it back into the domain where he is. And he should have to leave it stretched out until it's Matzah Shabbos, because since you're saying that his hand is not considered part of his body, so maybe we said it has its own rabbinic prohibited area known as a karmelis, which in general the Rabbanan made certain cases rabbinically prohibited, and therefore you wouldn't be able to take, you can't, like a karmelis, which is, let's say, like open fields, you're not allowed to carry from a karmelis to Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, as the Gemara says later on Daf Yomi, that the 4 different domains on Shabbos. And Rashi here explains where does the word karmelis come from. It's like a pasuk in Yeshaya, Ya'oreh b'karmelai, which is like the forest, the open fields. It's not where people normally walk. And it's not considered like a Rosh Hashanah or Rosh Hashanah. So Abayi's question is, maybe if we don't consider the hand like in your domain, now it's neither the domain that you're sticking it into, maybe we make it like a karmelis. And as the Gemara explains, did the rabbis penalize him that he's not allowed to go ahead and take his hand back because he started doing the prohibited malacha, he did the akira part, so maybe because he did already have the malacha, which is rabbinically prohibited, we penalize him, and now he cannot take his hand back, because now you're essentially taking from like a rabbinically prohibited area, like a karmelis, back to your Rosh Hashanah or Rosh Hashanah. You're not allowed to do that. Maybe not. Says the Gemara, Tashma Tzvinga, right from the following brisa. Brisa says, this exact case, if his hand was full with produce, and now he extends it outward to the other domain, so Tanichad will learn in one brisa, aslach, not take your hand back. But Tanidach will learn another brisa, no mutlach, you're allowed to take your hand back. Says the Gemara, so in my love, isn't it obviously talking about these 2 different brises that B'Hakim Mivlagi? This is what their machlekes is regarding the question of Abaya. The Marsav at the time of the first brisa holds karmelis damu. We consider the person's hand like as if it's a karmelis, and therefore you're not allowed to take your hand back. Marsav at the time of the second brisa says no, lavka karmelis damu. It's not like a karmelis, and therefore you're allowed to take your hand back. Isn't that the machlekes that they're having? Says the Gemara, no, that's not the case. The kuliyama, because everyone holds when you stretch out your hand into another domain, karmelis dami. It is like a karmelis. Because we said it's not like the domain that you're stretching it from, and therefore we're going to make it rabbinically prohibited. But v'lekasha, so then isn't it difficult? The second brisa says you're allowed to take your hand back. Says the Gemara, no. Kan over here by the first brisa that says aser is lamata mi'asara. It's when it's lower down than 10 tefachim. We said this in the introduction to this masech, to this parak. We said that the airspace of Rosh Hashanah only goes up until 10 tefachim in Rosh Hashanah. So if you stretch it out within 10 tefachim from the ground, so then the Rabbanan penalize you because you did a prohibited malacha taken from Rosh Hashanah, you did half of the kira part, putting it into Rosh Hashanah. Then we said, there it's a karmelis and you cannot take it back. But kan lamala masar, and this is actually halacha lamaisa, when you stretch your hand out above 10 tefachim into Rosh Hashanah, that's considered the airspace of a makom pater. Like the Mishnah teaches in Hazok later on the Kufim Manav, if you throw something 4 amas on the wall, if it's above 10 tvachim, it's like throwing it in the airspace and you're going to be pater, because Rosh Hashanah only goes up until 10 tvachim. So therefore they didn't penalize you because you didn't do anything wrong. Now Taisa actually asks a question, he says, wait a second, if you're telling me the brisa that says that you're allowed to take your hand back is when you did above 10 tvachim, why are you saying that he's allowed to take his hand back? He didn't do anything wrong. According to the halacha, if you're allowed to move something above 10 tvachim, it's a malkum patur. So why is he allowed to take your hand back? You're allowed to even do it likatchila. Seish actually says that you're right. The chiddush of that brisa, you allowed to take your hand back, Lamal Masar is talking about, where even when you did it, you stretch out your hand within 10 tefachim, you're allowed to pick up your hand and take it back above 10 tefachim, because then you're not doing anything wrong. That's the case of Lamal Masar. But be that as it may, that's one approach to say that no, they're not disagreeing. They all hold that it's like a karmelis. Now the Gemara says, if you want, you can say the opposite. You can say Idi, actually both cases are Lamata Masar. You stretch out your hand within 10 tvachim, v'lavka karmelis dami, and actually is not considered like a karmelis to be like its own domain, and still v'lekash, not difficulty. Kan, the second brisa said that it's mutter, that if you stretched out your hand, if you stretched out your hand from before Shabbos, so then when it turns Shabbos on Friday night, you're allowed to take your hand back. Why? Because we're saying they all hold it's not a karmelis, so it's not like its own domain, rather it's considered like part of your body, so you didn't do anything wrong. What'd you do? You stretched out your hand from before Shabbos. You didn't do any prohibited akira. And now to bring your hand back, of course, we consider it not a separate domain. We consider it as where your body is. But Khan, the first brisa that said it's aser is when you stretch out your hand mishachashecha. You did this first half of stretching out when it was already dark, it was already Shabbos, as the Gemara explains. If you stretched out your hand from before Shabbos, so you didn't do anything wrong, and it's not considered as its own domain, so like consider Rabbanan, the Rabbanan did not penalize him, so he's allowed to take his hand back. But if he stretched out his hand when it was already dark, then consider Rabbanan, then the Rabbanan penalized him, like as Rashi explains, not to make it its own domain, because they're saying everyone agrees it does not become a Carmelist, but simply because you did something wrong, because you did the first half of the malacha, therefore the Rabbanan penalized you, and you're not allowed to go ahead and take your hand back. Now the Gemara asks an interesting question, which takes us into a different discussion. The Gemara says that Adarabba, that to the contrary, that the logic would actually tell me the opposite of what you just answered. And this is actually halach l'maisa. When you stretch out your hand when it's still during the daytime, if you're going to say that it's prohibited for him to take his hand back, and shadile, he's going to drop it and he's going to throw it out of his hand so that, because he can't hold it the whole Shabbos, he's not going to come to a karban chatas because he didn't do a prohibited akira on Shabbos at all, because he did it from before Shabbos. All he's going to be doing is a hanacha. And so at most he's going to be doing Issa D'Rabbanan because he's only doing the second half of the malacha. As we learned that when two people do malacha together, it's pater, aval aser, but you're going to be pater. It's only a rabbinic problem. So then actually over there, lekansur Rabbanan. Actually there the Rabbanan should penalize him. They should not be able to take his hand back because you're not going to come to Chiyav Chatas anyway. So let's penalize you not to take your hand back, because even if you say, I can't keep my hand here for the rest of Shabbos, fine. So you drop it. At the most you're going to be doing it Issa D'Rabbanan. But when you stretch out your hand, when it was already Shabbos, the Isha delay, if we're going to go ahead and penalize you, and you have to keep your hand out, and he's going to say, I can't hold my hand out here all Shabbos, so he's going to drop it, because you say he can't take his hand back, so it's going to come out to Asib Chiv Chatas. He's going to come to be violent Chiv Chatas if he had done it by mistake, because he did the Akira, and now that you're not letting him take his hand back, he's going to drop it, he's going to be doing the Hanacha. So actually over there, Loila Kantur Rabban, the Rabban should not penalize him, because it's better that you don't penalize him than to cause him to be Chayv, a Chil Shabbos D'Oraisa, by now doing the Akira and the Hanacha together. So that's the Gemara's question. Isn't it better to do the other way around? I mean, you tell me you have a steer in the Brises. One Brise says you could take your hand back. Other Brise says you cannot take your hand back. So you tell me, which is the one that you could take your hand back? If you did it from before Shabbos, you didn't do anything wrong, you take your hand back. Which is the one that say you cannot take your hand back? You did the problematic Akira, you can't take your hand back. Says the Gemara, no, Ipra Mistabra. If the one when you stretch out your hand, you're going to tell me can't take it back, he's going to come to do a Chiyav Chatas. He's going to be doing the Akira and the Anacha. Better let him take the hand back and say which one is the one, if you're going to answer the Brises that you cannot take your hand back, is the one when you did it from before Shabbos. So let's penalize him because he has his hand in the wrong domain. And even if he drops it, he's not going to be doing the Chiyav Chatas because he only did the Anacha, not the Akira. Says the Gemara, from the fact that you did not answer this idea and you're not concerned to answer it the other way around, this is going to resolve the question of Rabbi Babbai that we're going to discuss at greater length on the next Daf, that the Chacham were not concerned about making a rabbinic prohibition because of the concern that if a person is going to get stuck with this rabbinic prohibition, he's going to do even a more severe violation. Because what was his question? The boy Rabbi Babbai, he asked the following question. Hidvik pas betana. Let's say a person goes and he attaches a dough to an oven on Shabbos by mistake. And he remembers, it's Shabbos, before it baked. Now, the Gemara tells us later on the Kufid Zayin Mabez that taking out a bread from an oven on Shabbos is at most a rabbinic violation. Because actually it's not even a malacha, it's chachma v'ein malacha. So at most it's a rabbinic violation. So Rabbi Babai had the following question. Did they permit someone who's going to do a rabbinic prohibition of taking out bread from an oven, l'irdaisa, to take it down before it's going to bake, and he's going to be chayiv because of a malacha of baking? Or maybe they did not permit him to take it down and take it out of the oven because the Rabbanan say I'll do rediyah of a pas minataner. So his question was, you have two options. Either do the Rabbanan, Issa D'Rabbanan of taking out the bread from the oven, and then it's never going to bake, you're not going to be chayiv the Issa of Afiyah, or no, the Rabbanan say I'll do rediyah hapas, but then you're going to violate Afiyah because you're going to end up baking. That was his question. Says the Gemara, now based on what you had answered the Brisa, that one's talking about from before Shabbos, one's talking about after Shabbos, Tifshin, you can resolve from the fact that we said that when's the case that we penalize you, the Brisa that you cannot take your hand back. It's talking about the one when you stretch it out, Meshachashecha, so you should resolve it, Deloy Hitiru, that they did not permit you to do an Issa D'Rabbanan to save you from Issa D'Oraisa. Because again, if we're going to enforce the penalty of not taking your hand back, if you stretch it out from after Shabbos started, then if you're going to enforce the Issa D'Rabbanan, he's going to come to a Chiv D'Oraisa, because he's going to drop it. and he did already akira, he's going to do akira nanacha. Obviously, the answer is that we're not concerned for that. Says the Gemara, okay, halak kasha, not a difficulty. Yeah, but tifshit, resolve Rabbi Bai's question from the way we answered the brises, that we don't let you violate Isser Rabbanan to save yourself from a bigger chiyuv of an Isser Deraisa. Then the Gemara says, no, maybe you want to say, actually, lo'ilam lo'i tifshit. You cannot resolve the question from these two brises. Because of halak kasha, actually, it's not a difficulty, because we could resolve the brise in different ways, and you won't have to say one's meba'id yom, one's mishach hashecha, to prove that we're not concerned to penalize, even though it's going to come to chiyuv deraisa. Why? Khan over here is talking about b'shogeg. One brisa is talking about that you're allowed to take your hand back as if you did it by mistake. Khan b'mezid, the brisa says that you're not taking it back as if you did it deliberately. B'shogeg, when you did it by mistake, look, consider Rabban, the Rabban did not penalize you. B'mezid, when you did it deliberately, then consider Rabban, then the Rabban penalized you. Now, it's just an important Rashi. I wouldn't say it unless it was necessary, because Rashi is adding on to the Gemara over here. That it's there. It's just the Rabibi cannot be resolved from over here, not for Isser, not for Heter. Remember, what was his question? His question was, do we let you be over Isser D'Rabbanan to save you from Isser D'Raisa? When we're saying that the two brises, one's talking about B'shogeg, one's talking about B'mezid, that the one, when you did it by mistake, you can take your hand back, you did it by mistake, you cannot take your hand back. Why do we not penalize you when you did it by mistake? Not because we're concerned that you might come to drop it and then, you see that we let you violate the Rabbanan to save you from Isser D'Raisa. No, it's simply because you didn't do anything wrong. You did it by mistake. And taking your hand back is not even Isser D'Rabbanan, unless for a penalty. And here we're saying you're not going to penalize you because you did it by mistake. But taking down the bread is explicit Isser D'Rabbanan. That was made a bona fide Isser D'Rabbanan, and because of that you might come to Chiv Chadis, that they didn't stop their Isser D'Rabbanan, and they said that you're not allowed to do that. Now, the opposite, the brisa that says that when you do b'mezid, you're not taking your hand back, you also cannot resolve and say, you see that we do penalize you, and that when you do b'mezid, that the brisa that says that we penalize you, you see that we're not concerned for the Isser D'Raisa. So and that says, Rashi says, no, because in our case, when you stretch out the hand, we don't have to be concerned that maybe you're going to drop it and become Techiv Misas Bezdin, because maybe you're not going to drop it. But here in the case of Rabbi Abaye, if we don't let you take down the bread from the oven, by default you're going to be Chayav Misas Bezdin, because it's an automatic thing that you're being Chayav on the Isser of Afiyah, and therefore you cannot resolve it from that resolution. Or Bibai Sema says the Gemara, another approach you could do to answer the brises, which will not infer one's Mishach HaSheikh, one's Bibai Yom to resolve Rabbi Bai's question, is Idi both brises are talking about B'shogeg. You did it by mistake. V'hach over here in one brise, in both brises, what B'kantu Shogeg Mezikim Efagi. What are they disagreeing about? Is do we penalize someone who did it by mistake because on account of what if he might come to do it deliberately? Marsa, by the time the first bride says Asur's Kantu Shogeg Mezikim, it says you penalize when he does it by mistake because of the case when he might come to do it deliberately and therefore not take your hand back. Marsa, the time of the second verse says it's mutter, it's like Kantu Shogeg Mezikim. We didn't penalize you and did it by mistake, of that you might come to do it when you did it deliberately. Or another approach you could say is Lo'ilam Loikan. So actually, no, we never penalized you. So Loikash is not difficult. Then if we never penalized you, why does the Brisa say now take your hand back? And this actually halach l'maisa too. Kan, when did we say you're allowed to take your hand back? Is lo'isa chatzar, is to that courtyard where you're standing in. You're allowed to take your hand back because we didn't penalize you and did it by mistake and you didn't do anything wrong. But it's a ketin type of dalam and aleph. But kan, the Brisa says it's aser, and this also halach l'maisa is lochatza acheres, is to a different courtyard that's nearby. That courtyard you're not allowed to throw it into. Which Taisa points out that although it says asal hachzer, it doesn't mean take it back to you. It means a similar courtyard as yours. Then you're not allowed to put it into that other courtyard. As the Gemara concludes, as he actually asked the same question as we're giving these two different brises explanation. His hand was full of produce, and he stretched it outside. So the question he asked him was, can you take it back to the courtyard that you were in? He says it's permitted. He says, what's the lochatza acheres ma? What's Allah? You take it now to a different courtyard. He says, he says, no, it's us. He says, what's the difference? Either one, you're stretching your hand out and let's say Rosh Hashanah. So we say that you're allowed to take your hand back. So what's different to your courtyard or to another courtyard? So he told him, what either that means to say is he was joking with him. He says either when you measure for me a kur of salt, I'll tell you the explanation. Or another interpretation is even if you would eat a kur of salt, which is tons of salt, you wouldn't be able to compare the two cases. Hasam over there when it's the same courtyard, his intention, which was to clear it out from this courtyard, wasn't fulfilled. So therefore the Rabbanan weren't geyser because you didn't accomplish your goal. So it's not going to come to violate any problems. But here, when you're taken to a different courtyard, your goal was accomplished because you got out of your domain. There the Rabbanan made a gezer. Although, in halacha, it shouldn't be any different taking back to your courtyard or another courtyard, but we're concerned that if we let you take it to a different courtyard, you might come to actually throw in the Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, that's what we said, that it's going to be asur. So some ideas we spoke about in today's daf is that we continue the discussion of Haitzah, as we said that the Mishnah only counts 8 cases, but like we said, there are possibly more cases of 12 or 16, which as the chart illustrates, that we said that the Shtaim Shen Arba Bifnim, Shtaim Shen Arba Bachutz. And the problem is, like we said, there's really 12 cases. As we said, we were only counting the cases of the ones who were doing the Akira. We're saying those are Shehein Arba for the 2 of them. We're saying there's 2 of them for each one, for the Ani in Rishus Rabim and for the Balabais in Rishus Yachid. We added on another 4. The Gemara asks, what do you mean? There should actually be 8 Isur Drabanan. Because what's with the ones who were doing the other half of the Isur Drabanan? They were doing the Hanacha. So on that, the Gemara had asked, what do you mean? Why are you telling me that there's only, that, like we said, there's 2 times 2, for the one inside and the outside, that's 8. So he said that because there's 4 obligatory and 4 Peturi, the question is not 8, there's 12, like we said, there's the Hanachas of the ones of Petur. So the Gemara, on the Gemara's question, asked the question on the question. It says, what do you mean? So, well, don't ask this 12, ask that there's 16. There's another 4 of exemptions of the ones of the opposite. When one is Chayiv Chatas, because he did the Kirin Hanacha, what's with that other person? We said he's Pater too, so why don't you add on those 4 to make it 16? So the Gemara answered, no. Pater and Mutter, we didn't mention. I'm not mentioning the ones that didn't do anything at all. Now, though Shmuel says there's only 3 cases in Shabbos that you're Pater and Mutter, that means when you're doing an action. When you were totally passive, we don't have to tell you that it's going to be Mutter. That we're not explaining. But what's with the fact that it's 12? So that the Gemara says that no, that's not difficult, because we only counted Peturi de Asib del Chiyav Chatas, meaning, like we said, that for this case, when we said for the 16, we said that no, Pater Mutter, that person's not doing anything at all. He's totally passive role. That we weren't counting at all. Now, for the other question, what's with the fact of the 12? Why is it only 8? Why isn't it 12? So that the Gemara says because only the one, and we'll go with Rashi's interpretation, the ones that are doing the Akira, those are the ones that we're mentioning. Although the one who's doing the Hanacha is rabbinically prohibited, but we didn't mention them because you can't come to a Chiv of Chatas. We're not going to count these because they're not doing the Malacha, obviously, only doing half, so those we didn't count. Then we mentioned regarding the halacha of Shnaim Peturin. We said that when 2 people do malacha together, so one does the kir, one does the hanacha, they're going to be pater. Like, what do you mean? I sabi the malacha maybe nayu. Between the 2 of them, they did a complete malacha. Why are they going to be pater? So that the Gemara said that there's a drasha of ba'asaisa, which is only when you do the whole malacha, then you're going to be chayiv. But if you do it between 2 people, so then you're going to be pater. Now, the next Gemara qualifies regarding the Hagdara of Akira, which there's 2 cases that the Gemara talks about. Either when someone put stuff on you, which is Chaver Hetina, or let's say you put it on you already, you took it on you from Erev Shabbos. So the Gemara's question was, is Akira's Gufay Akira's Chavetz Mimkayim Dami, and therefore you're going to be Chayiv, or maybe not, because on the one hand, he never did Akira, this guy picked it up. So all he's doing is, let's say, at the most Hanacha. Or do you say that no, Akira's Gufa is Kakira's Chavetz by picking up his body? So the Gemara answered, yes, Yechayev. And wait, what do you do with the halacha of the Mishnah? Why, in this case of the Mishnah, did we say that both are going to be pater? Because he's doing the Akira, he's doing the Hanacha. But wait a second. His hand, when he moves his hand, isn't that also the same thing? Isn't that a Hanacha? The Gemara says no, because the difference is that by the Gufa, when his guf is naich, it's stationary. So therefore, that's going to be considered now an Akira. His hand is fighting gravity. It's not stationary, and therefore it's still in transition from that person's Akira. So therefore we don't consider him as if he did an Akira. At most is that he did Hanacha. Now based on that Gemara that we said that the hand we don't view as the domain that it's from the person that it's in, so Abai says, I get it that it's not like Rosh Hashanah and not Rosh Hashanah. In other words, when he puts it to this domain, if the other person takes it from him, we don't see it as if he's taking from that person's domain. But then the Gemara's question was, what do you say regarding the halacha of if you stretched out your hand, now maybe you cannot take your hand back because it's not like where your body is. So it's almost like in a different rabbinically prohibited area like a carmelis. Could you take your hand back or not? So the Gemara says, isn't that a machlekes and brises? We have one brise that says if you stretch out your hand full of produce outside, you not take your hand back. One says it's mutter. So isn't that exactly what they're disagreeing about? Do we consider like a carmelis and therefore you can't take your hand back or not? And the Gemara says, no, both brises can be reconciled with either side of the shaila, as we brought there's different interpretations that you could say it, either that one's within 10 tefachim, the other one's above 10 tefachim, one's talking about that you did it b'shagig, one's talking about that you did it b'mezid, that although that they did not make it into Carmelist, but asl achzir would be that they penalized him for various reasons, and those would be the reasons why you can't take it back, and therefore it's not going to resolve the difficulty with the Gemara, because at one point the Gemara wanted to say that one interpretation was that everyone holds it's not like a Carmelist, but it depends if you took it mishachashecha or somewhere here on this chart, but you took it mishachashecha or miba'idyoim. So the Gemara says that based on that, if you're saying that when you did it at nighttime, then you did something wrong, you can't take it back. If you did it during the daytime, then you could take it back. But I should say the opposite, because if you're saying that you cannot take your hand back from when it's nighttime, you might come to do a Issa D'Oraisa, and better not enforce the Rabbanan and then come to Chiv D'Oraisa. Shouldn't that resolve Rabbi Bar Abai's question, where Rabbi Bar Abai is asking, could you take out the bread from the oven before it bakes? That answers his question. So the Gemara says yes, either that answers the question, or we have no different ways of resolving the brises, that either they're talking about one's shagi, one's mezid, or kanter shagi or mezid, or one's lois lachatza, or one is lachatza acheres. Those are different ways of resolving the brisa of why you're allowed to take your hand back or not. Therefore, that doesn't resolve Rabbi by his question regarding where you're going to do Meshech HaShecha, if you could go ahead and take your hand back or not. Thank you to Anytime for hosting us.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.